Claude Opus 4.7 just dropped, and I want to show you exactly what it can earn you. I ran 3 real freelance briefs. I would quote a client $1,500, 4 through Opus 4.7 and Sonnet side by side. And I am going to show you which one actually earns you money and where each one falls on its face in the next 6 minutes. Before we get into it, here is what you need to follow along. You need a Claude account at claude.ai. For the terminal portion, you need the Claude Code CLI, and you install that with npm install-g at anthropic/claude-code. You also want a paid Claude account because Opus 4.7 sits behind the Pro tier. Free accounts will not surface it in the model picker. That is everything you need, so let us get into the first brief. The first thing I am doing is opening the model picker inside claude.ai and switching to Opus 4.7. You can see it right there in the dropdown. Now I am going to run 3 real client briefs on both Opus and Sonnet back to back, so you can see which one ships the job. Brief 1. A local cafe needs a simple email sign-up page for their Tuesday jazz night, a classic $300 quick freelance gig. I am pasting the brief straight into Opus 4.7. The prompt asks for a Next.js page with a headline and date, an email form with validation, a Mailchimp API route that adds the email to their list, Tailwind styling, and a success confirmation. Watch what Opus 4.7 produces. It gives me a clean app router page component. It gives me a separate API route file that calls the Mailchimp members endpoint. With the right subscriber payload, it handles validation on the client, it handles the success state, and it even adds a rate limit on the API route so the cafe does not get spammed. This is code I can rename, drop into a Versal project, and invoice the client by Friday. Now I am pasting the same brief into Sonnet. Sonnet ships a working page too. The difference you're going to see is in the API route. Sonnet writes the Mailchimp call, but it skips the error handling for the case where the email is already subscribed, which is the most common error Mailchimp returns. If you shipped Sonnet's version to the cafe owner, they would call you the second week asking why their best customer got an error on sign-up. Opus 4.7 handled it. Sonnet missed it. Small difference, but that is the difference between a happy client and a refund. Brief 2. This one is a bigger gig. A freelance consultant wants a simple invoice tracker. They log their hours, and at the end of the month, the tool spits out a PDF invoice by client. $600 to $800 productized build. I am dropping this straight into Claude Code in the terminal, so you can see it build the full project live. I type the brief directly into Claude Code, telling it to build an Express plus SQLite invoice tracker. A form at the root to log hours, date, client, hours, rate. Storage in SQLite. A route that generates a PDF invoice for a given client and month using pdfkit. Then kick the server. Claude Code, running Opus 4.7, reads the working directory, sees there is nothing there, and starts scaffolding. It creates package.json, installs SQLite 3 and pdfkit, writes the server file with the roots, builds the HTML form, writes the PDF generation logic with proper formatting for a real invoice, and hands me back a running server. When I post an hour entry and then hit the invoice route, I get back a real PDF that a consultant could send to their client. That is a productized service you could sell on Gumroad for $50 a month or fulfill as a custom gig for a one-time fee. Built in under 2 minutes. Brief 3. Pure sales brief. I am bidding on an Upwork job for a Shopify merchant who wants a daily review sentiment monitor that posts to Slack when their rolling 7-day review sentiment drops below 70%. $500 fixed price gig. I need architecture plus the core scoring function to win the bid. I paste the brief into Opus 4.7. It gives me a full architecture diagram in text. A cron trigger running daily on Versal, a Shopify Reviews API fetch, a Claude API call to score sentiment with a specific prompt, a rolling 7-day average stored in a tiny KV store, and a Slack webhook fire when the threshold breaks. Then it writes the core sentiment scoring function, calls the Claude API with a structured output schema that forces a 0 to 100 score, plus the top 3 negative themes, and even shows me the Slack message format with trending negative reviews quoted in line. That is the exact answer I need to win the bid. Sonnet gives me the architecture too, but the scoring function is less structured. The Slack message is a plain text dump, and it does not suggest the 7-day rolling average. It just scores the day's reviews. Close, but not the version that wins the bid. Now let me talk about cost, because you are going to ask. Opus 4.7 costs $15 per million input tokens and $75 per million output tokens. Sonnet is $3 input and $15 output, 5 times cheaper. Here's the math on the 3 briefs you just watched. Running all 3 prompts on Opus 4.7 costs under $2 in API spend. The 3 gigs combined are worth roughly $1,400 of client invoices. That is a 600 times return on your API spend. The question is not whether Opus 4.7 is worth 5 times more than Sonnet. The question is whether the quality difference wins you the bid and keeps the client happy. On the cafe brief, Sonnet almost cost me a refund. On the Upwork brief, Opus wrote the version that wins. On the consultant tracker, both were fine. Use Sonnet for simple, well-defined tasks. Use Opus 4.7 when the job has to be right the first time because a client is paying for it. What you just saw is the honest picture of Claude Opus 4.7. It writes code clients can pay for, it ships architecture that wins gig bids, and when you drop it into Claude Code, it builds real, productized services you can sell. Sonnet is still great for the easy stuff where quality differences do not show up. But for the work that actually pays, Opus 4.7 is the one that earns you the invoice. If this was useful, subscribe to the Operator AI, because every week I am running real AI tools through real freelance gigs and showing you what earns and what does not. Drop a comment below telling me what you are building, and I read every one of those. Now go open claude.ai, pick a real brief from your backlog or from Upwork, and go build something that pays.